WHMIS. WHMIS stands for the Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. The goal of WHMIS is to reduce or eliminate the incidence of injuries and illnesses resulting from exposure to hazardous materials in your workplace. WHMIS provides you with labels, material safety data sheets, and training so that you can make informed decisions about using, handling, and storing hazardous materials. WHMIS is here to help protect you by creating a safe and healthy environment for everyone. You have a right to know about the hazardous materials that you may be exposed to in your workplace. But you also have a responsibility to use the WHMIS information to work safely to protect your health and safety and that of your co-workers. WHMIS is composed of 4 key elements: the classification of controlled products, labels, material safety data sheets, and education and training programs. This is why you are here today, to learn the basics about WHMIS. A short quiz at the end of your training session will help you to measure your understanding of WHMIS. Before a hazardous material arrives at your workplace, the supplier must classify the product and provide a WHMIS supplier label and material safety data sheet. If the hazardous material is produced in your workplace, then your employer must classify these as controlled products. As a worker, you have no responsibilities for classifying controlled products. But it is important that you understand what the WHMIS classes and labels mean. There are 6 WHMIS hazard classes and 8 WHMIS symbols. This is the symbol for Class A, compressed gas. It means this substance is under pressure and could explode if not properly stored and handled. Anesthetic gases, ethylene oxide, and oxygen are examples of Class A products. Class B, identified by the fire symbol, means flammable and combustible material. Class B products, such as alcohol, could burn if exposed to a flame or spark and must be stored in proper containers and rooms. Class C, oxidizing material, can be identified by the O in the flame. These materials can cause other materials to burn or support combustion. Class D stands for poisonous and infectious material and is divided into 3 divisions. Class D, Division 1, identified by the skull and crossbone symbol, is material causing immediate and serious toxic effects. Class D, Division 2, identified by the T symbol, are materials causing other toxic effects. The effect of these products may not become evident for a long time, such as cancer from asbestos. This symbol indicates Class D, Division 3, biohazardous infectious materials. Exposure to these materials could result in infection and illness, such as hepatitis B or HIV. Class E, corrosive material, means this material could corrode surfaces or human tissue. Bleach and some cleaning products are examples of corrosive material. This R symbol identifies Class F, dangerously reactive material. Ethylene oxide, for example, is classified as dangerously reactive. At high temperatures, it can decompose violently or explosively. More than one hazardous symbol could appear on a product. Therefore, in all areas where hazardous products are used, a WHMIS poster can be there to help remind you of the symbols and associated risks. There are other products you may use every day at work and at home that are partially or completely exempt from WHMIS requirements. We'll talk about the special consumer labels later. First, let's look at some of the WHMIS labels. One of the first warnings you have about dangerous products is in the form of a WHMIS label. Always read the label before you start working. Labels can tell you what the product is, why it's dangerous, and how to protect yourself. Never open or use an unmarked container. It could contain something that could harm you or make you sick. There are 3 types of WHMIS labels: supplier labels, workplace labels, and laboratory labels. Controlled products arriving from a supplier at the workplace must have a supplier label, but there are some exceptions. You can identify a supplier label by its characteristic hatched border. Supplier labels could be one bilingual label or 2 separate labels, one in English, the other in French. But for controlled products with a volume greater than 100 milliliters, they must include 7 pieces of information. The product identifier. This tells you what's in the container. The supplier. This tells you who to contact for more information. The statement, refer to MSDS. This means that more detailed information is available in the form of a material safety data sheet. We'll talk more about material safety data sheets later. The hazard symbol warning. A risk phrase. This tells you the hazards and degree of risk if you use the product. Precautionary measures are very important. They protect you by telling you how to store and use the product safely. Make sure you read these before you open the container. First aid measures let you know what to do in an emergency. For example, if you splash the product in your eyes, or get it on your skin, or breathe it in. Containers with less than 100 milliliters must have a supplier label showing the first 4 pieces of information. That is, the product identifier, the supplier, the WHMIS hazard symbol, and the statement, refer to MSDS. The second label you should be familiar with is the workplace label. Workplace labels do not have to have a distinctive border, but they must include a product identifier or name of the product, safe handling procedures, and the statement, refer to MSDS. Workplace labels are used, for example, when you pour products from one container into a second one. If you find a container that is not labeled or has contradictory labels, let your supervisor know. There are probably some areas in your workplace where products are stored, for example, in pipelines, large tanks, or reaction vessels. Placards, color coding, or other methods can be used to identify the contents, but everyone must be trained to recognize the identification system. Laboratories can house many hazardous substances, such as biological stains and dyes, fixatives and preservatives, or tissue culture media. So under WHMIS, there are special labels that apply to laboratories and no other workplaces. Laboratory labels can be used instead of supplier labels if the controlled product originates from a laboratory supply house, is intended solely for use in a laboratory, and is packaged in a container in a quantity of less than 10 kilograms. These laboratory labels must include the name of the chemical, first aid measures, risk phrases, precautionary measures, and the statement, refer to MSDS. If a sample is produced in a laboratory exclusively for the purpose of evaluating, testing, or analysis within the laboratory, then it can be labeled with a unique identifier, such as a numerical or alphabetical code. Under these circumstances, the product cannot be removed from the laboratory and must remain under the control of the researcher producing it. This unique identifier must identify the product, its ingredients, and indicate where further information can be found if needed. If you are a laboratory technician, technologist, researcher, or other laboratory personnel, be sure to ask your supervisors more about the special application of WHMIS to laboratories during your job-specific training. So we know that there are 3 types of WHMIS labels: supplier labels, workplace labels, and laboratory labels. Labels can help keep us safe as long as we read and understand them.